You Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chapter 8, Prayer by Queen Kunti. Text 37. Apadyana Svatva Swakruti Hito Prabhu Jihasasi Kvisutta Dono Jivana Ishana Chanyadravata Vanda Pujata Parayanam Rajasu Yujitaha Shamaha.
Hare Krishna. O my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. Are you leaving us today? Though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us. Now, when all kings are at enmity with us.
Jivayam Namarupapya Yadupi Sah Pandava Pavatu Darshanam Yahi Rusikana Pivesitu.
As the name and fame of a particular body is finished with the disappearance of the living spirit, similarly, if you do not look upon us, all our fame and activities, along with the Pandavas and Yadus, will end at once.
639. Niyam Sopishanti Tatra Yatha Dani Gadadara Tatvadir Dandita Bharti Kalakshana Vilakshite.
O Gadadhara Krishna, our kingdom is now being marked by the impressions of your feet, and therefore it appears beautiful. For when you leave, it will no longer be so.
Imi Janapada Sudha Supakoshati Tiviruddha Manadina Tuttavanto Svetante Tava Vikshite.
All these cities and villages are flourishing in all respects because the herbs and grains are in abundance. The trees are full of fruits, the rivers are flowing, the hills are full of minerals, and the oceans full of wealth. And this is all due to your glancing over them.
Next 41. Atha Visvatman Visvabhute Swakesumi Sneha Pasa Mimam Chinti Daktam Pandushu Krusisnu Ushnishu.
O Lord of the universe, soul of the universe, O personality of the form of the universe, please, therefore, sever my tie of affection for my kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis.
Dvaiminanyavisaya Mati Madhupate Sakruta Rati Muddha Atatratta Gande Jodha Mundavanti.
O Lord of Madhu, as the Gangas forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn onto you without being diverted to anyone else.
Sri Krishna Krishna Sakha Krishna Pushpa Pusa Bhava Nidhugraha Rajanya Vansadhana Nana Pavagavirya Govinda Kuti Jasu Surarati Haravatar Yogeshwara Khila Guru Bhagavan Namaste Namaste.
O Krishna, O friend of Arjuna, O chief amongst the descendants of Vrishni, you are the destroyer of those political parties which are disturbing elements on this earth. Your prowess never deteriorates. You are the proprietor of the transcendental abode, and you descend to relieve the distresses of the cows, the brahmanas, and the devotees. You possess all mystic powers, and you are the preceptor of the entire universe. You are the Almighty God, and I offer you my respectful obeisances.
44. Sutta Uvacha Pruthintha Valapade Parinutakilodaya Mandajaha Savenkusto Mahat Nivamayaya.
Suta Goswami said, "The Lord, thus hearing the prayers of Kunti Devi, composed in choice words for his glorification, mildly smiled. That smile was as enchanting as his mystic power."
Swaham Vadamitrutva Mantra Pravishya Gajasayam Sriyasya Swapuram Yasvana Premna Ragna Nivariti Sita.
Thus accepting the prayers of Srimati Kunti Devi, the Lord subsequently informed other ladies of his departure by entering the palace of Hastinapura. But upon preparing to leave, he was stopped by King Yudhishthira, who implored him lovingly.
Vyasa Vyasatari Swarehagne Krishna Karmana Prabodhito Piti Hase Navudyayat Suchapita.
King Yudhishthira, who was much aggrieved, could not be convinced, despite instructions by great sages, headed by Vyasa and the Lord Krishna himself, the performer of superhuman feats, and despite all historical evidence.
Aharaja Dharmasutta Chintayan Suhadavadam Prakrutina Atmana Vipra Sneha Moha Vasamgata.
King Yudhishthira, son of Dharma, overwhelmed by the death of his friends, was aggrieved, just like a common, materialistic man. O sages, thus deluded by affection, he began to speak.
अहो मे पश्यता ज्ञानं रद्धिरूढ दुरात्मना पारक्यशेव देहस्य ब्रह्यो मेक्षो हिणी हता.
King Yudhishthira said, O my lord, I am the most sinful man. Just see my heart, which is full of ignorance. This body, which is ultimately meant for others, has killed many, many phalanxes of men.
649 बालद्विचुत्सुन्य मित्रपितृभ्रातु गुरुद्रुह न मे स्नानिरन्यात्म मोक्षयपि वशायुतायुते.
I have killed many boys, brahmanas, well wishers, friends, parents, preceptors, and brothers. Though I live millions of years, I will not be relieved from the hell that awaits me from all these sins.
नीनुराग्न प्रजाभर्तु धर्मयुद्धि वधू दिशाम् इति मे न तु बोधाय कल्पते शासनं वच.
There is no sin for a king who kills for the right cause, who is engaged in maintaining his citizens. But this injunction is not applicable to me.
स्त्रीणा मदुत्बन्धुना द्रोहो योषा विभूषित कर्म विगृहमेति नाहं कल्पो व्यपोहितुम्.
I have killed many friends of women, and I have thus caused enmity to such an extent that it is not possible to undo it by material welfare work.
652 यथा पण्डेन पद्मनाभ सुरयावासुराकृतं भूतहत्या तथैवेकां न यज्ञिमास्तु मर्हति.
As it is not possible to filter muddy water through mud or purify a wine-stained pot with wine, it is not possible to counteract the killing of men by sacrificing animals. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the first canto, 8th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Prayers by Queen Kunti and Parikshit says. My sincere apologies and forgive me for my mistakes. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Meena Mataji, for your nice Sanskrit recitation. Thank you, Namrata Mataji, for your wonderful English reading of the translation. Okay, dear devotees, welcome to today's chat session. We continue reading of our Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter number 8, Prayers of Queen Kunti, Birth of Maharaj Parikshit. And today we'll be discussing text number 46 in more detail. So just bear with me while I get all the prayers 46 up. Okay, before we do that, let's recite the Mangala Charanam prayers. Please feel free to join in behind muted mics. I'm sure many of you already know the prayers. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunvalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yata Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutan Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gourange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sutidevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivashali Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve, Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschadishatarine. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So Lord Krishna has been trying to leave Hastinapur for his kingdom in Dwaraka. First, he got stopped by Uttara when the baby in her womb was attacked by the Brahmastra. released by Ashwatthama. And then he was stopped by Kunti Maharani, who offered these beautiful prayers. And now for the third time, after smiling and receiving Srimati Kunti Devi's prayers, he gets stopped by Maharaj Yudhisthira. So we see here this beautiful interaction between the Lord and his devotees. They can't bear to see the Lord, and the Lord cannot forsake his devotees. So leaving Hastinapur has become a challenge for Krishna. So we are now in the section, the Lord's interaction with a very aggrieved Maharaj Yudhisthira. And this is the context for today's verse, text number 46, which is such an interesting verse and purport. So let's try to discuss this really relishable verse. Vyasadhyay Ishvared Agnai Krishne Nadbhuta Karmana Prabhodito Piti Hashe Na Budhyata Suchar Pitaha. Word for word synonyms. Vyasa Adhyay, by great sages edited by Vyas. Ishvara, the Almighty God. Hiha, by the will of. Nai, by the learned. Krishnena, by Krishna himself. Adbhuta Karmana, by one who performs all superhuman work. Prabodhitaha, being solaced. Api, although. Itihasai, by evidences from the histories. Na, not. Abhujyata, satisfied. Sucha, arpita, distressed. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. King Yudhishthira, who was very much aggrieved, could not be convinced, despite instructions by great sages edited by Vyas, and the Lord Krishna himself, the performer of superhuman feats, and despite all historical evidence. Purport. The pious King Yudhishthira was mortified because of the mass massacre of human beings in the battle of Kurukshetra, especially on his account. Duryodhana was there on the throne, and he was doing well in his administration, and in one sense, there was no need of fighting. But on the principle of justice, Yudhishthira was to replace him. The whole clique of politics centered around this point, and all the kings and residents of the whole world became involved in this fight between the rival brothers. Lord Krishna was also there on the side of King Yudhishthira. It is said in the Mahabharata, Adi Parva 225, that 640 million men were killed in the 18 days of the battle of Kurukshetra, and some hundreds of thousands were missing. Practically, this was the greatest battle in the world within 5,000 years. The mass killing, simply to enthrone Maharaj Yudhishthira, was too mortifying. So he tried to be convinced with evidences from history by great sages like Vyas and the Lord himself that the fight was just because the cause was just. But Maharaj Yudhishthira could not be satisfied, even though he was instructed by the greatest personalities of the time. Krishna is designated herein as the performer of superhuman actions, but in this particular instance, neither he nor Vyas could convince King Yudhishthira. Does it mean that he failed to be a superhuman actor? No, certainly not. The interpretation is that the Lord as Ishvara, or the Supersoul in the hearts of both King Yudhishthira and Vyasa, performed still more superhuman action because the Lord desired it. As Supersoul of King Yudhishthira, he did not allow the king to be convinced by the words of Vyasa or others, including himself, because he desired that the king hear the instructions from the dying Bhishma-deva, who was another great devotee of the Lord. The Lord wanted that at the last stage of of his material existence, the great warrior Bhishma-dev see him personally and see his beloved grandchildren, King Yudhishthira, etc., now situated on the throne, and thus pass away very peacefully. Bhishma-dev was not at all satisfied to fight against the Pandavas, who were his beloved fatherless grandchildren. But the Kshatriyas are also very stern people, and therefore he was obliged to take the side of Duryodhana, because he was maintained at the expense of Duryodhana. Besides this, the Lord also desired that King Yudhishthira be pacified by the words of Bhishma-dev, so that the world could see that Bhishma-dev excelled in all knowledge, including the Lord himself. Such a beautiful verse and purport. King Yudhishthira was much aggrieved, could not be convinced. Despite instructions by great sages aided by Vyasa and the Lord himself, the performer of superhuman feats, and despite all historical evidence. So what Maharaj Yudhishthira is going through is called the dark night of the soul. And we all sometimes have this experience, or had this experience, where we find ourselves in a situation of bewilderment, confusion, hopelessness, depression. Those are in conditioned nature. These are a common experience. And here we see Maharaj Yudhishthira is going through this dark night of the soul. And the extent of this darkness can be perceived in this verse. He is so much aggrieved that neither Vyasadeva, the literary incarnation of the Lord, the compiler of all Vedic knowledge, can convince him or take him out of his depression. Neither quotation and extraction of the historical evidences from the Vedic literatures can have an impact on him. And lastly, and most surprisingly, even Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even he cannot get Maharaj Yudhishthira out of his illusion or his depression. So the situation is dire. And what is the cause? He sees himself responsible. Sometimes by some calamity, we may feel ourselves responsible for the distressing situation of some individual, or maybe even a family. That just by itself is so overwhelming. But here is Maharaj Yudhishthira. He's taking the burden of 640 million men dying on the battlefield. Such a heavy weight he's carrying on his shoulders. Now, the interesting question, or a really interesting aspect of this verse, Prabhupada focuses on Lord Krishna's quality of Adbhuta Karmana, means one who performs all superhuman work. So that means there is nothing that Lord Krishna cannot achieve. There is nothing that he cannot achieve. There's nothing that is greater or more powerful than the Lord. But here we see a situation that Maharaja's Yudhishthira's lamentation, aggrievement is something that even Krishna cannot overcome or turn around. Now, from one perspective, this is a great philosophical point or situation. Because if there is something that Krishna cannot achieve, that destroys his entire quality of omnipotence. Because he's not potent enough to overcome Maharaj Yudhishthira's lamentation. So this is a very important and interesting philosophical point. How do we address it? We know we can draw parallels between Arjuna's situation before the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna was bewildered. He was depressed. He couldn't even hold his bow. He was perspiring. Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita, and he completely dispelled Arjuna's lamentation. But why not here? There is a very famous verse that Srila Prabhupada used as the motto for Back to Godhead magazine. Krishna Surya Samamaya Haya Andakara Yahan Krishna Tahanahi Mayara Adhikara. And this verse says, Krishna is compared to sunshine, and Maya is compared to darkness. Wherever there is sunshine, there cannot be any darkness. As soon as one takes to Krishna consciousness, the darkness of illusion, the influence of the external energy will immediately vanquish. So this is the nature of Krishna. Where is this Krishna? There cannot be ignorance. There cannot be darkness. This is the fundamental principle of the nature of the Lord and Krishna consciousness. But that power, Krishna being the sun, cannot address Maharaj Yudhishthira. And Srila Prabhupada answers that question beautifully in the purport. How is Krishna's superhuman work? Is it a failure? No. No. So what is going on here? What is going on here? And Srila Prabhupada nicely writes that actually Krishna, he showed even a more superhuman action. And how was that? Firstly, as the super soul within Maharaj Yudhishthira's heart, he acted in such a way that Vyasadev's words could not convince them. Ordinarily, Vyasadev, Mahamuni Vyasadev, his words are so full of potency, it has the potency to dispel anyone's ignorance. But Prabhupada is saying, Krishna within the heart of Maharaj Yudhishthira prevented Vyasadev's words from having the impact. And also that Krishna prevented his own words. Krishna is so powerful, his words are all powerful, that he prevented his own words from changing the mind, overcoming Yudhishthira Maharaj's agreement. So what is Krishna's plan? He's performing a different kind of superhuman work, blocking the potency of Vyasadev's words, blocking the potency of his own words. Why? Because he had a plan. And that plan is going to be manifested in the next chapter. And what is Krishna's plan? Krishna wants Bhishma Dev's words. Well, Prabhupada says a few things. Firstly, Krishna wanted some arrangement for Bhishma Dev to be glorified. And Prabhupada says Krishna wanted to achieve three purposes. Firstly, he wanted Bhishma Dev to see his face before he leaves. Secondly, he wanted Bhishma Dev to see the Pandavas situated on the throne peacefully. He didn't want Yudhishthira to be sitting on the throne and lamenting. He wanted him to see the Pandavas seated peacefully. And thirdly, for the benefit of all of human society, the Lord wanted Bhishma's words, his teachings, and his learning to be eternally accessible and available to the world. And also, coupled with that, is Bhishma's learning to be glorified. Bhishma's prowess as a warrior was well known, but his prowess as being very learned in the Vedic scriptures, that was not so well understood. So this is the wonderful nature of Krishna. Krishna can achieve many purposes in one action. Many purposes. So Krishna is making this wonderful arrangement. Even we can see in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada writes a very nice purport. When the incident took place between Samika Rishi and Maharaj Parikshit, it was an extraordinary event. And Prabhupada writes, when he took that dead snake and he wrapped it around the sage's neck, that was totally uncharacteristic of Maharaj Parikshit. Ordinarily, we would not expect him to do such a thing, to behave in such a way, to become offended by not being given water by a sage. And in the purport, Prabhupada writes that how can we understand the situation? And Prabhupada writes, we can only understand the situation that it was Krishna's arrangement, that Krishna arranged for Maharaj Parikshit to act so uncharacteristically, just so that he would receive the curse, and eventually that this would lead to Srimad Bhagavatam being spoken. This is the nature of the Lord. He's so powerful. He's displaying his Adbhuta Karmana in a different way in this verse. In a different way. He maintained Maharaj Yudhishthira's situation. And this led to this most beautiful chapter coming up next, the passing away of Bhishma Dev, where Bhishma Dev speaks such beautiful transcendental knowledge that cuts through and penetrates Maharaj's Yudhishthira's situation. And in this way, Krishna's devotee is glorified. Krishna's devotee is glorified. Once in India, Srila Prabhupada was in a room, and in this room were his deities, Radha Govinda, and Prabhupada was talking to two of his disciples were there, Guru Das, and I can't remember the other devotee, but anyway, Guru Das was glorifying this devotee to Srila Prabhupada. He's done such wonderful service. He did this, he done that. And then suddenly Guru Das stopped and he put his hand on his mouth and he said, "Oh, Srila Prabhupada, I'm so sorry. I've created a great offense." In the Nectar of Devotion, it says there that one should not praise or glorify anyone else in front of the Lord. So Srila Prabhupada, please forgive me that I've committed such an offense. And Srila Prabhupada said, no offense. It's no offense. Prabhupada said, Krishna is already glorified. And he wants to see his devotee glorified. So by doing that, by glorifying this devotee in front of Krishna, Krishna is actually pleased. Once someone also asked a similar question to Srila Prabhupada. He said, Srila Prabhupada, we know that no one should be worshipped in front of the deity. But every day in our ISKCON temple, we perform Guru Puja. And during Guru Puja, the curtains of the deities are not closed. The curtains are opened. So how can we understand this? And Srila Prabhupada said, yes, same thing. But Krishna is already glorified. The spiritual master, who is very dear to Krishna, very dear to Radha and Krishna, when they are glorified, Radha and Krishna, when the spiritual master is glorified, Radha and Krishna becomes very pleased. Therefore, there is no contradiction, there is no offense when the Acharya, the spiritual master, when Guru Puja is being performed in front of the Lord. And here we see this this wonderful quality of the Lord coming through very nicely in this verse here. How Krishna is engineering, orchestrating, and even at his own expense, himself seeing less potent, being unable to convince, even at his own expense, is engineering a situation for so many purposes. He's Bhishma Dev being glorified, speaking transcendental knowledge, so that Bhishma Dev can have his darshan before he passes away. So at that stage, while this was happening, Bhishma Dev was already lying on the bed of arrows, and the situation was all taking place. So very nice verse, very interesting, endearing to see how the Lord acts in this beautiful way. I'll stop here and see if anyone's got any questions, comments, or reflections. Hare Krishna. Or reflections.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanava Pranams of Vishwapat. Thank you for wonderful class. I have a question, Prabhu. So in Shastra, we learned that Guru should be treated like God, but not God, of course. So he should be given the same respect as God, as Krishna, but obviously not Krishna. So in our Sampradaya, we also put Guru Parampara on the altar, but we give them a lowest position because they are on a lower platform. And in other Sampradayas, Sri Sampradaya, etc., I've seen that they put the Guru on the same platform as on the altar as the deity. Quite often there's a mantle that's slightly higher than the deity.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked them, and they said, well, your Guru should be treated the same as God in terms of respect, so you can go on the altar. So there's a subtle difference here between our understanding and theirs. How do we answer that?
You mean in terms of they it almost seems that their respect and veneration of Guru and the Acharyas is more pronounced than our.
Yes, and I didn't have an argument, because we read in Shastra that Guru should be given the same respect as God. So therefore, there's an own goal here. We can't argue that you can't put Guru on the same platform.
Mhm.
Yet we know out of respect we can't do that, and we don't do that in practice. But is that a subtlety, or is there some more stronger philosophical understanding that we're missing here?
Maybe there is. I'm not aware of it. We simply follow in the footsteps of the Acharyas and what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave. But I would see, I wouldn't know. Maybe there is. Maybe there is. I'm not sure, Prabhu. But the principle is both same. It's same in both respects. The fact that we put the spiritual master on the same altar as the Lord itself is showing that principle. Maybe because of a preaching in the West, and again I'm just thinking out loud here. That distinction is visible. Distinction is made, whereas in India, where people may be more philosophically tuned in, they will appreciate that setup a bit better than maybe in the West. That's the only thing I can think of. But I'll ask a question my seniors and see maybe if they've got another explanation, Prabhu, but I don't have any particular explanation.
Thank you, Prabhu. There's a, I can't remember how it goes, but Surdas, I think, also said that if Guru and Krishna both come in front of you, who do you bow down to? And he said in front of Guru, because it is through Guru you find Krishna.
Yeah.
So you give Guru your first pranams, and we do that in the temple room as well. We go to Srila Prabhupada first before we go to the deities. So yeah, thank you for that. It's an interesting conundrum. So thank you.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you for your question. Any other questions, comments, or reflections by anyone?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Very nice class. Thank you. Very nice class. And this is really, really like enlightening, because we see how the Lord, he put himself aside just to glorify his devotees. And he did the same in when Arjuna didn't want to fight. He told Arjuna, I have already set their life heirs. Just shoot them and take the credit. That's what he told Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. And here he's doing the same thing with Bhishma. So he knows how to trick people, right? He even sat in the heart of Vyasadeva. And not only Vyasadeva was there were great other great acharyas, other great sages were there. But he made sure that Maharaj Yudhishthira is not pacified by anyone's word, so that he can go to his devotees. Because Bhishma was a great devotee of the Lord. It's very beautiful. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Such a wonderful explanation by Srila Prabhupada. Anyone else has got any comments or reflections or questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I was just thinking about this Guru being on the same altar, same level as Krishna and Radha, or Laddu Gopal or Panchatattva. The Guru would not want to be. Guru serves Krishna and he serves us, so he would not want to be on the same level. All the parampara is on a level lower, serving Krishna and Radha, Panchatattva.
That's true.
Maybe it's ingrained because
That's
I
an
find it.
interesting perspective. Yes, the guru would not want to be there. Yeah.
He's serving because he's serving Krishna and serving us. So he would not want to be at the same,
Yeah, that's true. Thank you for that perspective, Mataji.
It just.
Yeah. Okay. Hare Krishna. Sorry, you wanted to add anything else?
Just saying that I'm just thinking aloud. I don't know much, but I was just trying to. I was finding it impossible because we have that altar and that's what's ingrained in our mind. And then I was trying to see if I could put the picture of Guru and Krishna the same. And then I was thinking, how would my Guru Maharaj feel? Even though we will bow down to Guru if Krishna came, but then Guru would be bowing to Krishna as well.
True. Thank you for that perspective, for sharing that. Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Is it Koshi Mataji? You wanted to add anything? Nila Mataji? Or you just unmuted by mistake? Okay. So it seems like there's no other questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Sandeep here.
Sandeep Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Nice to hear you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. A quick one on this reflection about Guru being on same pedestal as Bhagwan, as Krishna. At many places, Srila Prabhupada also in purports and in his lectures, when he explains in Bhagavad Gita as well as in Srimad Bhagavatam, he said that Krishna is Adi Guru, Jagat Guru. First he spoke Bhagavad Gita to Vivaswan and then to... And that's why if a Guru is on same pedestal as Krishna, then he's not respecting Adi Guru or Jagat Guru. No worthy Guru. And Prabhupada mentions there are a lot of rascals who are Gurus these days. And he's very clear on it. And these are the words, I'm quoting him verbatim. And so no worthy Guru would like to be at the same pedestal as Krishna, who's like Srimad Bhagavatam very clearly says that Krishna is Vasudev's son, Vasudev is the Bhagwan. So because that also increases the sin of the Guru if he's at the same pedestal. And it is in complete violation of the parampara, because then he's disrespecting all the parampara after Krishna till him by being on the same pedestal, bypassing everybody. So in my mind, it is crystal clear. Anybody who does that is not worth it. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for your reflection. Yeah, and we also know that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada, their preaching against the Mayavadis was such an important aspect of philosophical discussion and philosophical establishment. And we know that the Mayavadis, they believe that at some point in time we become God, or we become equal to God, or we are God. So one could also consider that, our preaching is so much against Mayavadi philosophy that, we make that philosophical principle so clear by placing, the Acharyas' photographs at a lower level. But against what Sailesh Prabhu said is also something we cannot discredit or minimize, that, the spiritual master, Prabhupada, is good as God, servant to God. Yeah. Okay, anyone else? Any questions, comments? No?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Is it okay if I ask a question, please?
Yeah, sure. Go on, Mataji.
I heard one day in Kadamkanana Maharaj's class that Srila Prabhupada is a Shakti-avesh avatar of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and somewhere it's written that he is a Shakti-avesh avatar of Nityananda Prabhu. Have you heard anything? If you could shed some light as to if this is correct or which avatar he was.
it certainly is considered Shaktiya Vesh avatar. Shaktiya means one who's endowed with the Shakti of the Lord. We also hear that the spiritual master is a manifestation of the mercy of Lord Nityananda, or is the representative. But, we should not wrongly consider that Srila Prabhupada is some sort of incarnation of Lord Nityananda. No, that is not the word. But yes, he's Senapati Bhakta, he's Shakti Avesh Avatar. That even Srila Prabhupada himself explains in the purport. Indirectly he explains this principle in the purport to Chaitanya Charitamrita. So he's Shakti Avesh Avatar. What he's achieved, he could not be any otherwise. For endowed with the Shakti of the Lord to spread Krishna consciousness. Yes, he is Shakti Avesh Avatar. He is a representative of Lord Nityananda, but we do not understand he is some form of expansion of Lord Nityananda or Lord Chaitanya now.
Thanks very much for clearing that, because I was thinking it is an incarnation, but he's just got the energy of a spirit. It was from spiritual world, and some of the things he did was not like from this world. Like one of the devotees tried to walk in his footsteps and they couldn't find the footsteps. Things like that made it confusion in then who was he really, Thank you for clearing this doubt. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your question, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Okay, dear devotees, I don't think there's any further questions or comments. Thank you very much for your participation, your dedicated attendance to the chat program. All glories to your service, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya
Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo
namo namaha. Ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Nice class.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Wonderful class. Thank you.